world, in anything you can imagine. So we're talking from experience. We're not talking from, some kind of pristine, ivory tower. So what we're talking about is what our real experiences have been, and we made these tapes asking our older members some questions. At the time, we thought we might put these tapes out in the sense of going public with this information. This was done a couple of years ago. We realized that it was sort of premature, and we did not do that. So we actually started going public in January. But we're not, funded by anybody. We're totally doing this from day to day. We don't know where we're going to be next week. We're literally on the road, in our cars, traveling, and giving out this information to anybody who has any interest in it. And it's free. Everything that we do is free. But if anybody wants to help us, we'll be happy. So you want to go ahead and...
Sure. Sure.
And this is not a giant big screen TV that fills the whole front, so you may need to come down a little bit to be able to see it if anybody wants to move down.
And all we really did was just pick out 15 minutes from a tape that is a couple years old. So hopefully soon we'll have a new tape that would be more appropriate for the times, but at least we'll give you an idea of who we're talking about and a feel for the one we call our older member, or refer to as Doe.
Partly we've noticed from past experience that some people are expecting a certain thing. I mean, to have flowing robes and long hair, or to have a shaved head and a saffron robe, or to look like a college professor, or something. They have a preconceived notion. I mean, I'm sure we all did when we first heard about this information. And this way you'll actually know what the person is like, and what it's like when a member of the kingdom of heaven is actually in a human body and using it to talk to you. And it's, I think you'll like.
So far, it looks like snow.
As you can see, we're not using next level technology.
Funny thing is, it did come undone. Oh, it came undone.
The old wire came undone trick.
Okay.
This is our last session, but that might change. My feeling is that it will be our last session of this series. We want to get right on with the series. We have some things to talk about that kind of round out our whole close up, or our summary, our bottom line. And I want to introduce to you Jim on my left, who will be helping me with this session, and his partner Glenn on my right. And I'm going to ask that they feed me questions as we have prepared our little outline, hopefully in accordance with my older members' instruction. So let's get right to it. And
Well, that can give you some idea. Like we said, that tape is a little bit old, and it's probably not as appropriate to this meeting as maybe some other material that might be taped in the near future, but that'll give you an idea of who we speak of when we're talking about our older member. Now, we'd like to open it up for questions, and Eben is going to help us field the questions.
Also wanted to say that if you feel like this isn't what you came for, and this is putting you to sleep or whatever, anyone's welcome to leave. We're not going to take it personal.
Any questions? Gosh, we must have did a good job.
I'm sure there's some questions.
Give them a moment.
Trying to figure out what they are sometimes is the hard part.
Actually, why is this all so vague?
Well, what?
I don't know anything more now about who you are or who the representative is than when I walked in the door a half hour ago, 45 minutes ago. It just all seems very, very vague. I definitely have just as many questions, if not more, now.
Well, if you could be specific, we know that, you have to bear
Okay.
with us. We're not, we've been in seclusion for 18 years, and our description of this material is probably, lacking. And if you could help us know where your areas are that we've left unclear, then we could help fill them in. That'd
I
probably be
mean,
the
you're not
best.
Scientologists, you're not subgenius, you're not.
That's right.
No.
What is this?
It's a good question.
If we could summarize it as a bottom line, it's a window of opportunity for individuals to graduate from the human kingdom into the evolutionary level above human. That level is a physical level. It's equivalent to or comparable to a dog graduating into the human kingdom, but it's a much bigger leap than that. And it only has happened, this is the first time it's happened in this civilization, and it's not likely to happen again in this civilization. Does that clear up anything?
It happened 2,000 years ago.
It did not happen 2,000 years ago. None left with Jesus. He thought some might go with him. There was a door open at that time, but none were ready to leave with him.
So this is basically a migration for souls that, are we here to purify ourselves and then travel on? Is that what you're saying? Do we meet up at Devil's Mountain and take off at an appointed time?
No, it's not that easy. Okay.
Is this a physical craft we're talking about?
Yes.
However, the physical on this level, and your comprehension of physical, is not necessarily going to comprehend all the, this planet, this garden, this environment was created as an experiment. The physics themselves are part of the experiment. The laws of physics do not apply to the next level as they apply here. They can do things with travel, and they're not restricted to the speed of light. They can, if aliens can bend time and space, the next level has technology that goes far beyond that. Okay, now, the one thing you're not going to find here is you're not going to find an affiliation with this group or that group or that group, because the whole human kingdom to us is something we're outgrowing. And so, although we support everyone's right to do what they want to do, and some have better projects than others, we are not affiliated with any of those. But we are affiliated with a movement that was begun a long time ago, before these physical vehicles can remember, where individuals were picked. Just like, if you can really understand a simple analogy, which it's like a rancher. Okay, he needs some horses in his stall. He needs some to pull the little cart. He might need some to plow the field. He might need some to ride or to develop in some way. As a show horse, he's got a need or a desire to have some new horses in his stall. So he goes out, and there's lots of horses in the field. They're wild. So he picks a bunch of them. He chooses a bunch of them, might seem like a random method, but he may even have a method of choosing the horses just based on how he sees them in the field wild. He gathers them to his ranch, and then he starts to train them, and he assigns people to help him train those horses. And some take the training, some don't. The ones that don't take the training, they go back into the wild. They're not really usable for his need. But the ones that do take it, he continues to train, and those horses themselves even start to recognize that they're enjoying the service that the other horses that are wild would say, oh, look at that, they finally captured that one and they made him a slave. But all those horses that are in the service of the rancher now are saying, whoa, I'm glad I'm not out there anymore, just running around like, with no direction. And that's who we are. We're just some horses that were somehow gathered around and are trying to be trained.
How many of you are there?
Well, there's less than 4 dozen, but we don't keep track of, maybe that's not even accurate. We don't keep track of exact numbers, right down to the one, because everyone's got the choice to come and go as they please within the training program. If you sign up for the training program, and there's nothing to sign, by the way, it's your presence and your intense desire to be a part of it. That's the only signal there is. Then you still have the choice every moment of every day to say, this really wasn't for me. I need to leave. And we've even helped people over the years do that and helped them even gain back part of their life to some degree. Because this isn't an easy step. When we talk about an overcoming classroom, there's no blackboard. I mean, there may be at times, but there's no place where you go and you sit in chairs like these and you listen to lecturers. On the other hand, there are times where our older member would be talking to us like we're talking to you and giving us lessons. And there are times when he works on one-on-one with people, helping each individual with their own individual package of all kinds of characteristics that need to be overcome if anyone ever expects to be compatible or not an interference in that next level. There's a laboratory for the next level to do anything they want to do. The weather patterns. This whole thing was designed, you understand? And it's really a beautiful, neat thing when you can see it from the perspective of knowing it's not a spiritual concept. That individuals sat down and put their heads together and said, how can we do this better? How can we produce an environment where a soul would have virtually nothing in it and start to draw on information that changes its behavior and it acts differently and it becomes a new creature, and then the next level takes it into their own house, in their spacecraft, in their environment, in their laboratory, and says, you can learn everything. You can learn how to even participate in creation itself, not by breathing the breath of life, not by envisioning something and it appears. Not to say that very old members in the next level could not do that, but the mechanism of creation isn't an etheric activity. And so we're being trained how to be beginners in those laboratories.
You just kind of touched a little bit on, you said maybe the older members, and sometimes it's actually over the classroom, sometimes it's one-on-one. You kind of touched on maybe down the road a little bit, how would someone in the room right now just decide that this is for them? What would happen right now as of this point? What would be the next step?
Well, the next step for anybody who was really seriously considering this would be to talk to us personally, because there are, different considerations. Each person's life is enmeshed in different ways, but pretty much what is involved is you walk out the door of your life. In a sense, you have to literally leave everything behind. And then in a sense you come and you begin your overcoming process, meaning that you come with us.
Right.
And
Well,
you...
that may be more where my question lies, is physically. I mean, as you said, right now you're on the road, you don't know where you're going to be next. I mean, where would I actually come to? Where would I go once I go home and sell everything I have in my apartment?
Right.
Where do I go?
Well,
Well, that's a good question.
We can't answer that right this moment, but we would work that out with you. The
We'd
way
stay
it
in
happened,
touch.
the way it happened with us in 1975 and 76 was, after we attended a meeting and we felt that compelled to pursue this, we received some information about a follow-up meeting. We attended that, and then we were given a point of destination. for this individual, I happened to hear the information in Oregon, and I was given a destination in Colorado. I was gone 3.5 days later.
But each individual circumstance is different, and that's why we like to talk to individuals on a one-on-one basis if they're actually considering doing a step like this. Like we say, it's something that is the most important decision, the most difficult decision you will ever make in your life, and we don't take it lightly. And we, like we said, we make sure that this is something someone wants to do and knows what's involved.
We have a number of people in the audience that are actually with us who have joined us since January. So, and they may be able to shed some light on it for some who want to ask them who are, you know.
I think there was an individual in a white T-shirt up there that had a question.
I have a question. I kind of gotten some glimpses of things, some little bits of information that I've seen in books, read in different sources, not all in the same book, that have led me to a roundabout idea of what I think is to come. And it's led me here. And I'm kind of curious what relationship this has to meditation, chakras, energy, and like light beings and sources and all.
Guess I'm elected. Well, that's a good question, because I think a lot of people in the audience have probably, as they start searching, they start reading more and more of these books. And if you go in a good, large metaphysical bookstore or even a health food store, you'll see on any subject on this planet, there's a whole array of books. And they contradict each other, and at the same time say they have the answer. So it's very, very difficult to sort out the misinformation from the truth. And it's like the ones that we spoke of as the Luciferians, the whole way that they work here is to purposely fill these books with enough truth and enough misinformation so that you wind up not being sure. We can tell you this, there's no spiritual techniques or meditation involved in overcoming the world, in getting from this level to that level. You learn to quiet your mind, you learn disciplines, but you learn it with hands-on. In other words, it naturally occurs the same way it was occurring 2,000 years ago. When you read the Bible, it doesn't speak about a whole bunch of spiritual techniques. What it speaks about is you leave the world behind and you go in partnerships, where there's 2 or 3 gathered in my name, I'm present. Same principle. You go around in partnerships and you do daily tasks, whether it's postering, fixing cars, making meals to consume, doing your laundry, many, many things that a lot of you already do. But you do them not the way the human would do them, you do them as a member of the next level would do them. And the only way you can even know what that is to have a representative in the flesh to actually be an example. Now we, of course, are not older members. By that we mean we have not yet, at least to the best of our knowledge, earned what the Bible refers to as a glorified body. In other words, this body that is genderless, androgynous, that doesn't need to eat, sleep, do any animal activities. We have not earned it yet. We're in the process of it. The older members that came here had already overcome the world, whether on this planet or some other planet, long, long time ago. And they already knew what they were doing. So they could very quickly overcome it and teach us. Now, to get there, what you do basically is learn to do everything that you do 24 hours a day, from your thoughts to your actions, as a member of the next level would do them. And to do that, since, in other words, the way that you overcome your human addictions is first, like any 12-step program, you identify them and admit them. You say, okay, I'm an alcoholic, or I'm a sexaholic, or in other words, I have a bad temper. The body I'm using, the horse I'm trying to break, because you're the soul. In other words, you're the rider, you're not the horse. So you're learning to get the horse to act like a member of the next level. The horse is a wild animal. It thinks this is crazy. So what you're trying to do is, while in that hardware, change the software to be a match for that kingdom. So you need hardware. So in other words, you can't do it while out of a body. You have to have a body, but you don't need to do a whole bunch of spiritual techniques. All you need to do is automatically do everything the way you learn to do it in the classroom. That's why he called it a classroom. You learn to do everything as a member of the next level would do it, and you automatically go through a changeover. It's really hard to understand, because until you do it, we know we've done it enough. Not that we're perfect, but we've done it enough to know how it works and that it works. You don't know that yet. But we can tell you that you go through, and the new people can tell you that you go through automatically all the experiences that will allow you to change your thinking and behavior to be a match for that level. And it happens, it's guided by the kingdom of heaven, by the evolutionary level above human, in a way that we don't understand anyway. You know?
Yeah, no,
Maybe
no,
they can
that's the
help.
same thing.
Maybe we need to be more specific. For instance, okay, the basic things that we don't do. Okay, we don't drink alcohol. We don't do things that alter our consciousness. The only time we take a drug would be a prescription drug, and we don't automatically take it just because some doctor says that's what we're supposed to have. We might take it sometimes, and sometimes we might not, based on a lot of variables. We don't smoke cigarettes, of course. We don't we don't smoke marijuana or do LSD, or we don't try to raise our consciousness by eating mushrooms, or we don't sit in certain positions to do yoga exercises. Now, those things, we're not saying these things are all bad. You know, we don't do them because we don't not do them because they're bad, okay? But we're trying to eliminate everything that is an influence of this world that would take our mind and our consciousness away from connecting with our older member who's here physically, who is connecting with his older member who is not here physically. And so we've got a chain of mind with our older members. And our older member is not just someone who he's on the tape and he just, says these things of wisdom. No, he's someone that in any area, any department, and I'll give you, this is the bottom line, this is truth to the core. In any area, if you ask him a question, he'll come up with a better answer than you've ever heard before. Now, he's not an egotist. If he doesn't know the answer, he tells you, I don't know the answer. And sometimes he says, well, I think this might be the way it is, and you can try this, but I'm going to go in my silence and I'm going to start talking to my older member and see if I can get even a better understanding. So he's an individual that is not static at all. Our concepts here, we could talk to a blue in the face about the space aliens and about a lot of things, and for all we know, some of it's going to be inaccurate, some of it's going to be accurate. It's not that important, but the overcoming process is something we can testify to right down to the letter because we've been involved in it with our own package. For instance, when thoughts are going through your head randomly, when you automatically have a negative response to anything that happens, when someone says something to you and you look at them and you say, you're looking at me kind of funny and I don't like your attitude. Now I can have all those kind of thoughts and I can live with those kind of thoughts and think that's normal behavior. But in the next level, they don't even speak. And so their thoughts are as loud as a loudspeaker. It's like telling somebody they're no good, or telling somebody they're, why do you have that ugly look on your face and you're such a negative person. We take those kind of thoughts and we say, I don't want to have those kind of thoughts anymore. I want to recognize that if there's anything you all could do to me, I can benefit from examining it. If you can, for instance, we're in partnerships, 2s and 3s, not because it's something in the Bible. We're in partnerships in 2s and 3s because it provides a working arrangement where you're constantly faced with interfacing with other individuals' computers and souls using those computers. In other words, we all have the same desire to rid ourselves of anything that separates us from what would be a beginner in that next level. And it's hard to explain. I know I'm going around Jericho, but the point is that we all have characteristics. Different characteristics. You get two people together and they get married and they find out that all the characteristics they didn't like, even though they liked enough about each other to hop into bed in the beginning, and that lasted for a while, and then they found out, well, how do we live with each other? Okay, now these partnerships, they don't have the bed to fall back on to solve their problems, okay? So what they do to solve their problems is work it out. Figure out okay, you got one idea, I got another idea. What's the right idea? What's the best way of doing this? What would our older member do in this circumstance? And he's objective. He doesn't have an interest in a relationship with us, you know, like a physical relationship, or he doesn't need us to be his students. So he gives you an honest answer. You ask him, you know, what's black and what's white, and he tells you what's black and what's white. If you don't ask, you don't get. And so we're talking about relationships where you're with people around the clock. There's no thought of, this classroom's fine right now, but I think I need to go down in the corner and get myself a Coke or a pizza. But we say, if you want to go down in the corner and get a Coke or a pizza, go do it. But we don't know if we're going to be here when you get back. Because this classroom is a crew of individuals trying to learn to work as a crew, like as if you could take us, put us on a spacecraft, and we wouldn't have a desire to walk in space just because we thought it was nice out there, you know, and be subjecting the whole crew even to danger. So we think in terms of unselfishness. This is what the Eastern religions talk about, not having self. Well, we know what that is in real life, how to get rid of self. And that is when you care more about supporting somebody else, your partner. You care more about their ideas, their perspective, than you care about yourself and your own ideas, your own ego, and your own, you know, all the different characteristics of the human kingdom. And maybe you can help fill in a lot
Not
of
to make this one answer too long, but I think one thing that, now that you got us going on this, no, one thing that we may not have discussed thoroughly is that we're talking, you know, we are definitely separating what's inside these containers from the containers. You know, whether it's your spirit or your soul, that is separate from your flesh body or your container. Your container, your flesh body, is a genetic package that was handed down, which has, in a sense, a mind of its own. It's got characteristics of its own. If your grandfather was grumpy in the morning, your father was grumpy in the morning, you're grumpy in the morning, you got it. I mean, it's there. And that might be something that you might want to change, because if you're on a crew and they're depending on you in the morning, they know they can't depend on you to 10 a.m., you know, that's something that you work on.
not your coffee break.
You may not even recognize that that characteristic is undesirable because everybody in your family had it. And these things, if you work with individuals that, you know, you may look at us here and we may look pretty much the same. When we came in, we came from, you know, 180 degrees, 360 degrees spectrum. We had businessmen, we had hippies, we had housewives, we had people who came from all walks of life. And that wasn't, you know, happenstance. That was the way the next level put our minds or souls into these bodies. And if you get partnered with somebody and you were a hippie and the person was a businessman, you're obviously going to have some differences there that are genetic or whatever, and you're going to, you know, the soul, like we went back to the horse and the rider. You know, the body is the horse, I'm the rider. I'm going to get that horse under control. Part of the reason of this overcoming process and what we're going through is to learn, in a sense, muscle of the soul, to be able to take this machinery, which is a primitive, crude machinery, and get it to perform the way I want it to perform. Not the way it wants to perform, not on some whim, not have some temper tantrum when it wants to. You know, anger, if I want it to have anger and it's appropriate, that's fine. But if it just decides to do it on its own, then I don't have control. I don't have the reins. So I'm certainly not going to be able to get control of another vehicle or container that's got much more refinement and much higher capabilities and capacities if I can't control this one. So a lot of what we're doing is building muscle of control.